guys, back today with another Creating the Crafty Life's Creative Weekly Wisdom. And this week we are going to take a simple chipboard tree and we're going to give it some character and some details. And so it's going to be super easy to do. You're just going to need some chipboard, some hot glue, some ink, paint, and some waxes if you want to do this particular step. So let's go ahead and get started. So I am going to use the Tim Holtz Alterations branch tree. I know that I don't think that this is available anymore. I know at least not in a Big's die, but you may be able to find it in one of his thin dies, but again, I'm not sure. But any tree die really would work for this. I'm going to use some walnut stain paint, but any brown paint that you want to use for this would be fine. And then ground espresso ink. And again, any ink that you would like to use. I just like this color combination a lot because I like this darker looking look to the tree, because the tree is kind of like spooky, and so I feel like the darker colors like lean to this. But if you have a different tree dye, you can definitely change up the colors that you like. And then I have these two Finnabar waxes, the turquoise satin and the rose gold. The turquoise satin I feel like is more of a what do you call it, like a fantasy kind of tree. So if it was like more fairies and things like this, I would lean more towards using this one versus the rose gold, which it just adds a little extra something. You could use like gold, bronze, really any color wax if you wanted to add that little step. But I found I really do like the way that the rose gold, it just gives it a little bit of a warmer tone to it and a little bit of shimmer, which I really like. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, you guys, so let's get started. So I've already pre-cut the tree, what is this one? The branch tree from Tim Holtz out of some medium weight chipboard, okay? To keep my area clear, I am actually going to put down a paper towel. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use my ink. Now, I did cut this out of chipboard, so obviously it's brown. And if you like this color brown, you can definitely use it as is, but I just liked a slightly darker tree. So you can do this a couple of different ways. You can get your ink blender out and ink it. I am not that patient, so I literally just run the ink pad over the chipboard, and you just ink it to your heart's desire if you want to ink it. It's really how dark you would like to do it, but I just kind of smoosh and press, and I tend to like this tree a little bit darker, so there we go. And your fingers will get inky because obviously we are dealing with ink. And I'm just going to press into certain parts that maybe aren't. But the other thing is, I guess you don't have to be too perfect with it, because we're going to be putting the hot glue over top of it. And that's probably going to cover up plenty of it. And okay, there's my brush. Okay, so if you wanted to, you could hit this with a little bit of like with your heat tool, just to dry the ink if you wanted to. I don't think that that step is that necessary unless it's really saturated. And then as you're using your hot glue gun, it possibly could be wet and then tear off. So again, it's just one of those things. It depends on how much you saturate. So now we're going to create the bark effect, and it's simple. Don't let it intimidate you. You just do it as it looks good to you. And I usually start from the bottom and go to the top. But again, you just kind of do it however you would like to. I've tried it going from the top down. But again, it's just preference, and you don't want them to be uniform. So as you're doing this, what I like to do is I'll start at the bottom, and I'll just kind of run my glue, and I'll just kind of pull it and then thin it out, run it along, thin it out, make it kind of knotty, because, you know, tree bark is not uniform. Okay. Got my nail just a little bit. Let me zoom in just a little bit more. Maybe it'll give you, sorry about that, guys. Maybe it'll be a little bit easier to see. Okay, so as I'm doing it, I just find a spot. So I just put it down, and then I lift up a little bit, and I just kind of stretch the glue out, and I'm just kind of dragging it along. Along the top of it. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's just creating the ridges. Okay, I'm gonna move this down just a little bit so I can try and stay on camera, but watching what I'm doing and then watching where I'm landing on the camera. And I just kind of dot it a little bit. And I try not to make my movements like too uniform, because, like, again, I said, like, tree bark is not uniform at all. Okay. So this, not super in love with, but we can come back in here and kind of add some more there. And again, it is just literally adding hot glue, and you're just kind of pulling it, weaving it, just making sure it doesn't come out in just one thick blob. Okay, I missed this little branch right there. And go ahead and, oops, sorry. Oops, that was a little bit too big. Okay, all right, so there is the tree. Let's back out so I don't get off camera too much. Okay, all right, so there is that part. It doesn't look that good right now, and I do have some strings, but I'm going to clean those up with my heat tool in just a moment. So let's go ahead, grab our heat tool, and I'm just going to melt the little strings that are not attached to the branches. And so you can cut those, you can just kind of melt them off. It's however you would like to take care of those. You may even like those. Let's go ahead and melt it from the back. But again, this is your creepy, spooky tree. Okay. I do want to, hang on just 1 second. Because it is hot glue, you can always cut those, break them, but when they're all melty, it's easy enough to just break them. If they're kind of thick and they're still melty, you can just come in and you can just give them a quick little cut, however you want. There we go. That's going to be good enough. I'm not going to be too fussy about this. Since it is going on a project, the likelihood of every little bit showing is not very likely. And it will probably get covered up a little bit. So there's that. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and bring in more light. I'm going to try and, there we go. And bring it a little closer. Okay. Now I'm ready for the next step. I don't know if you guys are, so let's go ahead. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my Distress paint, and it's just because I have this on hand. You can use, like I said, any inks, any paints, acrylic, it doesn't matter. But again, I'm just choosing a brown paint because trees are brown, and I'm not really fussy. And you just need a brush. Now, a little bit, we're going to dry brush this on. So I would say a brush, not maybe a fan brush, but just something with a little bit flatter bristles. I don't think a round brush would work as good for this because we're just going to be brushing across it. Okay. So we just need to get a little bit on our brush, and I'm going to just kind of thin it out. Less is more. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and brush across the tree. If I get some on the base of the tree, that's fine. I'm not worried about that, but my goal is to cover up the hot glue. And so it just doesn't look like a shiny thing. So you can see it's just a really, really messy dry brush. There's no rhyme or reason, just covering up the hot glue. Okay, I'm going to go back and bring in just a little bit more coverage. You can wait for this to dry. Now, if you're impatient, like I am a lot of times, and you choose to use a heat tool, be careful because it is hot glue and it can melt it, and then it'll mess up your project. So just be careful. Speaking from experience, definitely have had issues like that. So you see, even though like I wasn't super happy with the trunk of it to begin with, because I thought it looked a little too uniform. Now that I've got that paint on there, it is definitely giving me a much better effect, and I'm okay with it now, like, because it looks like old and kind of craggly. But yeah, just dry brushing that paint on, and then we do have to make sure that it dries. So let's go ahead and hit it with our heat tool, but just very carefully. We're not going to get it too hot, because otherwise it will remelt that hot glue and potentially mess up our paint. Okay. All right. I could actually put this in front of the fan and set it aside. Let's just check the paint. Let's use a clean finger. Okay, not quite, because I did get some transfer from that. So gotta let it wait for just a little bit longer. Oops. And as it dries, if you want to do a second coat, just going to kind of touch up a couple areas that I don't love as much. Okay. There we go. Okay. It doesn't take much paint. Okay, we're going to let this dry and we'll be back in just a minute. Okay guys, so you can actually leave it like this. So you can leave your tree looking just like this, and it looks like an old, just an old tree with bark and stuff like that. So you could definitely leave it like that, but I like adding a little bit of wax. I've used both the rose gold and the turquoise satin. It's just a personal preference of what look you like a little bit better. So you just take a little bit of that. Any wax really that you have, just to add a little bit of something. So just put a little bit on my finger, just like that, and I just lightly run my finger over top of the paint and the hot glue. So it's just barely kind of just grazing it, just like that. And it just adds like another, like a little bit of shimmer, shine, that kind of thing. So we can add a little bit of the turquoise one, just a little bit, and So you can see this one, it definitely adds a little more shimmer to it. So this one would be more, I don't know, more fantasy, I guess, but that's what it looks like. So I like that. You could also use your snow text and add snow to these, and I think that that would be a really cool effect. So there you go. That is this week's Creative Weekly Wisdom. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you guys do this, I would love to see your, let's go ahead and just, your projects, and there we go. That's what it looks like. So super easy, very, very fun, adds a lot of character and dimension to just a regular die cut trees, and with very, very few supplies. So thank you guys again so much, and we'll see you next time. Bye.